In the year 2347, humanity had finally broken free of its isolation. For centuries, Earth had been nothing more than a tiny blue dot in the vastness of space, unnoticed and unimportant to the countless civilizations scattered across the galaxy. But that changed when astronomers detected a faint signal, a message from an alien race known as the Xylorian Alliance. The signal was not just any communication, it was an invitation for humanity to join the interstellar community. Theos, United Nations Space Command, UNSC, Earth's governing body for all things related to space exploration, wasted no time. They assembled a team of experts to represent humanity at the Galactic Council, the ruling body of the Xylorian Alliance. Among them was Ji-Ho, a calm and intelligent diplomat who had spent most of his life working on international relations. He was chosen because of his ability to remain composed under pressure and his knack for finding common ground between opposing sides. Ji-Ho wasn't alone. Joining him were three other individuals, each selected for their unique skills. Yoon-seok, a brilliant astrophysicist with a passion for unraveling the mysteries of the universe, brought scientific expertise to the table. Subin, a fearless military strategist with years of experience leading troops in combat zones, ensured that humanity's strength would be represented. And Yoonji, a linguist fluent in dozens of alien languages thanks to her work decoding ancient texts, was tasked with bridging the gap between human speech and alien tongues. As they prepared for their journey, the weight of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. This was no ordinary diplomatic trip. It was humanity's first step into the galactic stage, and failure was not an option. If they succeeded, Earth would gain access to unimaginable technology, resources, and alliances. If they failed, humanity could be cast aside, labeled as unworthy primitives by the very beings they hoped to impress. Their spacecraft, the UNSC Odyssey, gleamed under the artificial lights of the launch bay. Sleek and modern, it was a marvel of human engineering, designed specifically for long-distance space travel. As the four representatives boarded the ship, they couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. None of them had ever traveled beyond Earth's solar system before, let alone met aliens face to face. What awaited them on the other side of the galaxy? Would the Xylorians welcome them as equals or dismiss them as insignificant newcomers? The journey to Zetheris Prime, the planet where the Galactic Council convened, took several weeks. During that time, the team worked tirelessly to prepare. Ji-Ho reviewed every document he could find about the Xylorian Alliance, memorizing their customs, history, and political structure. Yoon-seok tinkered with the ship's instruments, ensuring they were functioning perfectly. Subin studied potential threats, analyzing what little information Earth had gathered about alien militaries. And Yoonji practiced speaking in various alien dialects, determined to master even the most difficult sounds. Despite their focus, there were moments of levity. One evening, as the ship drifted silently through the void of space, the group gathered in the communal area to share stories. Ji-Ho spoke fondly of his childhood in Seoul, describing the bustling streets and vibrant markets. Yoon-seok talked about his fascination with black holes, his eyes lighting up as he explained how they warped the fabric of space-time. Subin shared tales of her time in the military, recounting daring missions and close calls. Even Eunji opened up, revealing her love for poetry and her dream of writing a book one day. These conversations helped ease the tension, reminding them that beneath their titles and responsibilities, they were still human. They laughed together, argued over trivial matters, and supported one another when doubts crept in. By the time they arrived at Zetheris Prime, they weren't just colleagues, they were friends. When the UNSC Odyssey entered orbit around the planet, the view outside the windows left them breathless. Zetheris Prime was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with hues of gold and crimson, dotted with towering crystalline structures that seemed to glow from within. In the distance, massive ships hovered above the planet, their sleek designs hinting at advanced technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. As they descended toward the council chamber, their hearts raced with anticipation. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. The moment that would determine humanity's fate in the galaxy. When the door of their shuttle hissed open, Ji-Ho stepped out first, followed closely by his companions. The air smelled strange, tinged with a metallic tang that made them acutely aware of how alien this place truly was. Surrounding them were beings of every shape and size imaginable. There were towering reptilian creatures with scales that reflected light like mirrors. Ethereal beings floated gracefully, their translucent forms pulsating with energy. Insectoid aliens scuttled across the floor, their multifaceted eyes glinting ominously. And then there were others, creatures so bizarre that Ji-Ho struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. At the center of it all stood Vortan, the leader of the Galactic Council. His presence commanded respect, his deep voice resonating throughout the chamber as he addressed the assembly. "We have summoned representatives of Earth," he began, his tone laced with both curiosity and skepticism, "to witness what true power looks like." Ji-Ho felt a chill run down his spine. True power? What did Vortan mean by that? Before he could ask, holographic projections appeared in the air, displaying images of recent battles between the Xylorians and a rogue faction, known as the Kalar Dominion. Explosions lit up the screens, accompanied by the deafening roar of weapons fire. The message was clear. Humanity was being tested. As the projections faded, Ji-Ho exchanged nervous glances with his teammates. Whatever lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain. They couldn't afford to fail. Not only was Earth's future at stake, but also the hopes and dreams of billions of people back home. With determination burning in their hearts, they steeled themselves for whatever challenges awaited them. The grand hall of the Galactic Council was unlike anything Ji-Ho and his team had ever seen. It stretched endlessly in every direction, its ceiling lost in a haze of shimmering light that seemed to pulse with life. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings and glowing symbols, each representing one of the thousands of species within the Xylorian alliance. Despite the beauty of the surroundings, the mood was tense. Every alien eye in the room was fixed on the human delegation, scrutinizing their every move. Ji-Ho felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple as he stood at the center of the chamber. He adjusted the collar of his formal suit, trying to appear calm despite the overwhelming pressure. Beside him, Yoon-Seok fidgeted with the edge of his jacket, while Subin kept her posture rigid, her sharp gaze scanning the crowd. Yoon-ji clutched, a small tablet in her hands, ready to translate any alien speech into something comprehensible. Though none of them spoke, they communicated silently through glances and subtle gestures, drawing strength from one another. Vortan, the leader of the council, rose from his ornate throne-like seat. His towering form commanded attention, and his voice echoed across the chamber like rolling thunder. "Representatives of Earth," he began, his tone measured but firm. "You stand before us today not because we believe you are worthy, but because we wish to understand your kind better." His words struck a nerve. Ji-Ho clenched his fists, resisting the urge to defend humanity's honor right then and there. Instead, he forced himself to listen as Vortan continued. "For centuries, your species has remained isolated, content to squabble among yourselves over trivial matters. Only recently have you shown signs of progress." He paused, his piercing gaze locking onto Ji-Ho. But progress alone does not guarantee acceptance. The weight of Vortan's statement hung in the air like a storm cloud. Ji-Ho swallowed hard, his mind racing. Was this some sort of test? A way to humiliate humanity before rejecting them outright? He glanced at his teammates, searching for reassurance. Subin gave him a slight nod, her expression unreadable but resolute. She seemed to be saying, "Stay focused. Don't let them rattle you." Vortan gestured toward the massive holographic displays hovering above the chamber. Images flickered to life, showing scenes of destruction, burning cities, shattered spaceships, and armies locked in brutal combat. "This is the reality of our galaxy," Vortan explained. "Conflict is inevitable. Survival requires strength, unity, and adaptability. Tell me, humans, do you possess these qualities?" Before Ji-Ho could respond, the holograms shifted again, revealing footage of recent battles between the Xylorian alliance and a faction known as the Kalar Dominion. The Kalar were fearsome warriors, clad in sleek black armor that gleamed with an unnatural sheen. Their weapons emitted bursts of energy so intense that they left craters where entire buildings once stood. Watching the carnage unfold, Jiho couldn't help but feel a pang of fear. If the Xylorians struggled against such foes, how could humanity possibly hope to measure up? As if reading his thoughts, Vorton turned his attention back to the human delegation. "Your arrival here is no coincidence," he said. "We have summoned you to witness firsthand what true power looks like, and perhaps to prove whether your species deserves a place among the stars." With those final words, the council adjourned, leaving Jiho and his team alone in the vast chamber. The other delegates filed out silently, their strange forms casting eerie shadows on the polished floor. For several moments, the humans simply stood there, processing what had just happened. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't being invited to join the Alliance. It was being challenged to earn its place. "We need to talk," Jiho said finally, breaking the silence. He led his team to a quiet corner of the chamber, where they huddled together to discuss their next steps. "Did you hear him?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. "He didn't say we're welcome. He said we have to prove ourselves." Subin crossed her arms, her brow furrowed in thought. "It sounds like they want to see if we can fight," she said bluntly. "If that's the case, we'll need to prepare for the worst." Yun-Seok nodded in agreement. "From what I've seen of their technology, it's far beyond anything we have on Earth. We'll be at a disadvantage unless we come up with a strategy." Yoonji, who had been quietly observing the exchange, chimed in. "Maybe it's not just about fighting," she suggested. "They mentioned strength, unity, and adaptability. Those aren't just military traits. They're values. Maybe we can show them what makes humanity unique." Her words sparked a glimmer of hope in Jiho's mind. Perhaps this challenge wasn't solely about raw power. Maybe it was an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's resilience, creativity, and spirit. But how? They needed a plan. And fast. Over the next few hours, the team brainstormed ideas, weighing the pros and cons of each approach. Jiho argued that diplomacy should remain their priority, emphasizing the importance of building trust with the Council. Yun-Seok proposed using Earth's scientific advancements as leverage, showcasing innovations that might impress the Xylorians. Subin, however, insisted that they couldn't ignore the possibility of conflict. "If they want to test us, we'd better be ready to fight," she said firmly. "We can't afford to look weak." Eventually, they reached a compromise. They would focus on diplomacy and science, but also prepare for the possibility of combat. Subin volunteered to lead any military efforts, promising to assemble a team capable of holding their own against the Kalar. Yun-Seok agreed to assist by analyzing alien technology and finding ways to counter it. Yoonji offered to act as a mediator, ensuring clear communication between humans and aliens. And Jiho took charge of coordinating everything, serving as the glue that held the group together. As they finalized their plans, Jiho couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Council hadn't specified when or how they intended to test humanity, but it was clear that the clock was ticking. Whatever lay ahead, they needed to be ready. Later that evening, the team returned to their quarters, a modest suite provided by the Council. Exhausted but determined, they gathered around a table to review their preparations. Jiho opened a digital map of Zitharus Prime, pointing out key locations where the Kalar had clashed with the Xylorians. "If they decide to stage a mock battle, it'll probably happen somewhere like this," he said. "Open terrain, lots of cover, perfect for testing tactics." Subin leaned forward, studying the map intently. "I'll need reinforcements," she said. "Back on Earth, I know people who can handle themselves in a fight. Taimin and Hyejin, for example. They've been through worse than this." "Then send for them," Jiho replied without hesitation. "We'll need all the help we can get." While Subin contacted Earth to request additional troops, Yun-Seok tinkered with a portable scanner, attempting to analyze traces of alien tech left behind during previous battles. Yoonji, meanwhile, pored over linguistic databases, refining her translations to ensure smooth communication with the Council. Despite their fatigue, none of them rested. There was too much at stake. As the night wore on, Jiho found himself gazing out a window at the glittering expanse of Zitharus Prime. The planet's golden surface shimmered under the light of twin suns, casting long shadows across the landscape. It was breathtakingly beautiful, but also intimidating. This world belonged to the Xylorians, not humanity. Yet somehow, Jiho felt a spark of determination ignite within him. They had come this far, and they weren't going to give up now. Turning back to his teammates, he spoke softly but with conviction. No matter what happens next, remember why we're here. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone back home. For every person who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered if we're alone. Let's make them proud. His words resonated deeply, filling the room with a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead, not as individuals, but as representatives of humanity. And as they prepared for the unknown, they knew one thing for certain: they wouldn't go down without a fight. The following morning, the human delegation was summoned back to the council chamber. As Jiho and his team entered the grand hall, they noticed an air of anticipation among the alien representatives. The towering reptilian beings stood rigid, their scales reflecting the light like armor. Ethereal energy entities floated silently, their forms shimmering with faint pulses of color. Even the insectoid creatures, usually scuttling about in chaotic patterns, seemed unusually still. It was as though the entire assembly was holding its breath. Vortan, the leader of the Galactic Council, rose from his throne-like seat once again. His deep voice reverberated through the chamber, commanding immediate attention. "Representatives of Earth," he began, his tone colder and more direct than before. "You have been given a chance to prove your worth. Today you will face a trial, a test of strength, unity, and adaptability." Jiho's heart sank. He had feared this moment would come, but hearing it confirmed made the reality all the more daunting. Vortan gestured toward a large holographic projection that materialized above the chamber floor. It showed a barren rocky moon orbiting Zitherus Prime. "This is where your trial will take place," Vortan explained. "A simulated battle between your forces and the elite warriors of the Kalar Dominion." Subin stepped forward instinctively, her military instincts kicking in. "What are the rules?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. Her question drew murmurs from the crowd. Clearly, aliens weren't used to humans speaking so boldly. Vortan regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "There are no rules," he replied, "only victory or defeat. Your task is simple: survive against the Kalar and demonstrate why humanity deserves a place among the stars." The weight of Vortan's words hit the team like a tidal wave. A battle with no rules, against the same warriors whose devastating power they had witnessed in the holographic projections. Jiho felt a surge of panic, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Now is not the time to show weakness. What happens if we fail?" Jiho asked, his voice cutting through the silence. Vortan's expression darkened. "Failure means exile. Humanity will be deemed unworthy and cast aside, never to join the Xylorian alliance." His gaze swept over the human delegation, lingering on each of them as if trying to gauge their resolve. "Do you accept this challenge?" Jiho glanced at his teammates. Subin met his eyes with unwavering determination. Yoonseok nodded slightly, his mind already racing with ideas for countering alien technology. Eunji clutched her tablet tightly, her knuckles white but her expression resolute. They didn't need to say a word. Their shared look said everything. This was their only chance. "We accept," Jiho declared, his voice firm and clear. The aliens erupted into murmurs, some sounding skeptical, others intrigued. Vortan merely nodded, as if he had expected nothing less. Later that day, preparations began in earnest. Back in their quarters, the team gathered around a table strewn with maps, diagrams, and notes. Jiho spread out a detailed scan of the moon where the battle would take place. Its surface was rugged and desolate, dotted with craters and jagged cliffs. It was a harsh environment, devoid of vegetation or water, a perfect stage for combat. "This terrain works both for and against us," Subin said, tracing her finger along the map. "It gives us plenty of places to hide and ambush, but it also means we'll have limited mobility. We'll need to pick our positions carefully." Yoonseok adjusted his glasses, studying the data on his portable scanner. "The Kalar use advanced plasma weapons," he explained. "They're fast, powerful, and can cut through most materials. Our standard equipment won't stand a chance against that kind of firepower." "So what do we do?" Jiho asked, leaning forward. "We can't just sit there and let them obliterate us," Yoon Seok hesitated, then revealed a small device he had been working on since their arrival. It was a prototype electromagnetic pulse, EMP generator, compact enough to fit in a backpack. If we can disable their weapons with an EMP even temporarily, it might give us an opening, he suggested. But it's risky. If they figure out what we're doing, they could counterattack before we're ready. Subin nodded thoughtfully. It's worth a shot, she said. But we'll need more than just tech. We need soldiers who know how to fight dirty. People who can think on their feet and adapt quickly. That was when she turned to Jiho. I've already contacted Taemin and Hyejin. They're en route with reinforcements. Both of them are seasoned fighters, and they faced impossible odds before. With them, we stand a better chance. Jiho felt a flicker of hope. Taemin and Hyejin were legends in their own right, known for their courage and tactical brilliance. If anyone could turn the tide of battle, it was them. As the hours passed, the team worked tirelessly to prepare. Subin drilled her troops on guerrilla tactics, emphasizing speed, stealth, and precision. She taught them how to use the terrain, to their advantage, setting traps and creating diversions to confuse the enemy. Yoon Seok fine-tuned the EMP device, ensuring it would function properly under pressure. Yoonji reviewed every scrap of information she had gathered about the Kalar, searching for weaknesses that could be exploited. And Jiho coordinated everything, making sure everyone knew their roles and responsibilities. By the time Taemin and Hyejin arrived, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The two soldiers brought a sense of confidence and purpose that inspired everyone around them. Taemin, a grizzled veteran with a scar running down his cheek, immediately began inspecting the weapons and gear. Hyejin, quieter but equally formidable, focused on strategy, offering insights based on her experience leading covert operations. We don't have to win outright, Hyejin said during one of their briefings. We just have to hold our ground long enough to make them respect us. Show them that we're not easy prey. Her words resonated deeply. This wasn't about defeating the Kalar completely. It was about proving humanity's resilience and ingenuity. That realization gave the team a renewed sense of focus. On the eve of the battle, the human delegation gathered for one final meeting. Jiho addressed the group, his voice filled with quiet determination. Tomorrow we step onto that moon, knowing full well the odds are stacked against us. But we also step onto it with something the Kalar don't have. Heart. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone back home. For every person who's ever dreamed of a better future. His words were met with nods and murmurs of agreement. Subin placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression fierce. We've got this, she said. No matter what happens, we'll show them what humans are made of. With those parting words, the team dispersed to rest and prepare mentally for the challenges ahead. Jiho lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his quarters. His mind raced with thoughts of the battle to come, the risks, the sacrifices, the potential consequences. But amidst the uncertainty, one thing was clear. Humanity had come too far to back down now. As dawn broke over Zetheris Prime, the human delegation boarded their transport ship, bound for the moon where their fate would be decided. The journey was short but tense, each passing second bringing them closer to the unknown. When they disembarked onto the rocky surface, the cold, sterile landscape greeted them like a silent adversary. In the distance, the Kalar warriors emerged, their sleek black armor glinting menacingly in the pale sunlight. Their weapons hummed, with latent energy, ready to unleash destruction at a moment's notice. Subin tightened her grip on her rifle, her jaw set in grim determination. "Stay sharp," she whispered to her team. "This is it." And with that, the stage was set for humanity's greatest test, a battle that would determine not only their place in the galaxy, but also the legacy they would leave behind. The barren moon stretched endlessly before them, its gray surface pockmarked with craters and jagged rocks. The air was thin, almost non-existent, forcing the human team to rely on their oxygen tanks. Dust swirled lazily in the weak gravity, kicked up by the faint breeze that swept across the desolate landscape. Despite the eerie stillness, tension crackled in the air like static electricity. Everyone knew what was coming. Subin stood at the front of the group, her rifle slung over her shoulder and her eyes scanning the horizon. Her troops were spread out behind her, taking cover behind boulders and rocky outcrops. Each soldier had been briefed thoroughly on their role, but no amount of preparation could fully prepare them for the reality of facing an alien enemy as advanced as the Kalar. In the distance, the Kalar warriors began to move. Their sleek black armor gleamed under the dim light of Zithorus Prime's twin suns, making them look more like machines than living beings. They advanced steadily, their weapons glowing faintly with an ominous energy. The hum of their plasma. Rifles grew louder as they approached, sending a chill down the spines of even the most seasoned soldiers. "They're not wasting any time," Taemin muttered, crouching low behind a large rock. His voice was calm, but his grip on his weapon betrayed his nerves. Beside him, Hee-Jin adjusted her visor, zooming in on the approaching enemy. "They're confident," she replied, her tone clipped. "Probably think this will be over in minutes." Subin nodded, her expression grim. "Let them underestimate us. That'll be their first mistake." She signaled for her team to hold their positions. The plan was simple. Lure the Kalar into a trap, disable their weapons with Yoon-Seok's EMP device, and strike hard while they were vulnerable. It was a risky strategy, but it was the only chance they had against such superior firepower as... The Kalar drew closer. Subin raised her hand, signaling for silence. The humans held their breath, waiting for the perfect moment to act. When the enemy was within range, she gave the signal. A barrage of gunfire erupted from the human side, catching the Kalar off guard. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, striking rocks and sending shards flying in all directions. The Kalar recovered quickly, returning fire with devastating accuracy. One of the human soldiers cried out as a plasma bolt grazed his arm, the heat searing through his suit. Another ducked just in time to avoid being hit, the blast leaving a smoking crater where he had been standing moments earlier. "Fall back!" Subin shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Stick to the plan!" Her team retreated swiftly, disappearing into the maze of rocks and craters. The Kalar pursued, their movements methodical and precise. They seemed unfazed by the initial ambush, their confidence unwavering. Back at the command post, Yoon-Seok monitored the battle from a safe distance. His portable EMP device was ready, but timing was crucial. Activating it too early would give the Kalar a chance to adapt. Activating it too late could mean disaster for the human forces. "They're moving into position," Yoon-ji said, watching the live feed from a drone hovering above the battlefield. Her fingers flew across her tablet, translating communications intercepted from the Kalar. "They're planning to flank us," Jiho frowned, his mind racing. "We need to keep them focused on the center. If they split up, we won't be able to hit them all with the EMP. Yoon-Seok nodded, adjusting the settings on his device. "I'll wait until they're clustered together. Then I'll activate it." Meanwhile, on the front lines, Subin led her team deeper into the rocky terrain. She knew the Kalar were tracking them, but she also knew the aliens weren't familiar with Earth's guerrilla tactics. Using the uneven ground to their advantage, the humans set traps, hidden explosives rigged to detonate when triggered, tripwires designed to slow the enemy's advance. "Stay sharp," Subin ordered, her voice low but firm. "We're not here to win outright. We're here to buy time." Her words resonated with the soldiers, who continued to execute the plan with precision. As the Kalar pressed forward, they triggered several of the traps, causing small explosions that forced them to regroup. The delays were minor, but they added up, giving Yoon-Seok the precious seconds he needed to prepare the EMP. Finally, the moment arrived. The Kalar converged on a narrow pass between two large craters, exactly where Subin had predicted they would go. From his vantage point, Yoon-Seok watched the live feed intently. When the enemy was tightly packed, he pressed the activation button on his device. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse of electromagnetic energy rippled outward, invisible but powerful. The Kalar's weapons sputtered and died, their glowing tips flickering out like extinguished candles. Alien shouts filled the air as the warriors realized their predicament. "Now!" Subin yelled, raising her rifle. Her team sprang into action, emerging from their hiding spots to unleash a coordinated assault. Without their advanced weaponry, the Kalar were forced to rely on brute strength, but the humans had prepared for this too. Taemin led a charge, his combat knife flashing in the dim light as he engaged the nearest enemy. Hye-Jin provided covering fire, her aim steady despite the chaos around her. The tide of the battle began to shift. The Kalar, caught off guard by the sudden loss of their technological advantage, struggled to adapt. Their once flawless coordination faltered as confusion spread through their ranks. Seizing the opportunity, Subin directed her troops to focus on key targets, isolating groups of Kylar and overwhelming them with sheer numbers and determination. From his position at the command post, Jiho watched the unfolding scene with a mixture of awe and pride. The humans were holding their own, not because they had better weapons or stronger bodies, but because they refused to give up. Every explosion, every burst of gunfire was a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Yunji leaned closer to the monitor, her eyes widening as she translated another message from the Kalar. "They're calling for reinforcements," she said urgently, "but they're not sure how effective it will be without their weapons." Jiho clenched his fists. "We can't let them recover. Tell Subin to push harder." Yunji relayed the message, and Subin responded immediately. She rallied her troops, urging them to press forward with everything they had. The humans surged ahead, driving the Kalar back step by step. Though the aliens fought fiercely, their efforts were no match for the relentless determination of their opponents. By the time the simulation ended, the outcome was clear. The Kalar had been decisively defeated, their arrogance shattered by the unexpected tenacity of the human forces. As the holographic projections faded and the council members materialized around the battlefield, the atmosphere was heavy with disbelief. Vortan stepped forward, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he simply stared at the humans, his piercing gaze lingering on each of them in turn. Finally, he spoke. "You have proven yourselves worthy of consideration," he said, his deep voice carrying both surprise and grudging respect. "No one expected you to survive, let alone prevail." Jiho felt a surge of relief wash over him, but he didn't allow himself to celebrate just yet. This victory was only the beginning, a small step toward earning humanity's place among the stars. As the team regrouped, exhausted but triumphant, Subin turned to Jiho with a faint smile. "We did it," she said simply. Jiho nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "Yes, we did. But this is just the start. There's still a long road ahead." And though none of them voiced it aloud, they all knew the truth. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galactic stage, and it wasn't going to stop now. The aftermath of the battle left the human delegation both physically and emotionally drained. Dust still hung in the thin atmosphere, settling slowly over the rocky terrain where moments earlier chaos had reigned. The Kalar warriors stood silently, their sleek black armor now dulled by streaks of dirt and scorch marks from the explosives. Their weapons lay useless at their feet, victims of Yunseok's EMP device. Though they hadn't been defeated outright, this was, after all, a simulated trial. Their arrogance had been shattered. Jiho leaned against a boulder, catching his breath as he surveyed the scene. His suit was torn in places, exposing patches of synthetic material underneath, and his face bore smudges of gray moon dust. Despite his exhaustion, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. They had done it. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with one of the galaxy's most feared factions. Subin approached him, her movements slower than usual but deliberate. Her helmet was tucked under one arm, revealing strands of hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. "We held our ground," she said simply, her voice tinged with pride. "They underestimated us, and we made them pay for it." Jiho nodded. "But don't forget why we're here. This wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about showing them what we're made of." He glanced around at the rest of the team. Taemin and Hyojin were helping injured soldiers back to their feet, their expressions grim but resolute. Yoon Suk was examining the remnants of the EMP device, muttering to himself about improvements that could be made. Yoonji stood nearby, scribbling notes on her tablet as she translated fragments of alien communication picked up during the skirmish. As the council members gathered around, their towering forms casting long shadows across the battlefield, Jiho straightened up. Vortan stepped forward, his massive frame exuding authority. For once there was no trace of disdain in his gaze, only curiosity and something resembling respect. "You have surprised us," Vortan admitted, his deep voice echoing across the barren landscape. "Your tactics were unconventional, your tools primitive compared to ours. Yet you adapted. You overcame. Tell me, humans, what drives such determination?" Jiho exchanged glances with his teammates before stepping forward. "It's not just about strength or technology," he began, choosing his words carefully. "Humans are survivors. We faced countless challenges throughout our history, wars, famines, disasters, and every time we found a way to keep going. It's not because we're stronger or smarter than others, it's because we refuse to give up." Vortan tilted his head slightly as if considering this explanation. "Survival is admirable," he conceded, "but survival alone does not guarantee unity. How do you ensure cooperation among your kind when so many differences divide you?" This question struck a nerve. Jiho thought back to Earth's turbulent past, the conflicts, the divisions, the struggles for power. But he also remembered the moments of triumph, when humanity had come together to achieve the impossible. "We may argue and disagree," he replied honestly. "But when the stakes are high enough, we put aside our differences. We work together because we understand that our survival depends on it. That's what makes us strong, not just as individuals, but as a species." For a moment, silence fell over the group. Even the aliens seemed taken aback by Jiho's words. Then Yunji stepped forward, clutching her tablet tightly. "We're not perfect," she added softly, "but we learn from our mistakes. Every failure teaches us something new, and every victory reminds us of what we can accomplish when we stand united." Her statement resonated deeply, drawing murmurs of approval from several council members. Vortan studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your imperfections," he mused. "Perhaps that is what sets you apart." Encouraged by the shift in tone, Jiho pressed further. "We don't seek to dominate or conquer," he said firmly. "We want to contribute, to share our knowledge, our creativity, our spirit. If given the chance, we believe we can help strengthen the alliance, not weaken it." Yoon Seok chimed in, holding up the remains of the EMP device. "Our technology may seem simple compared to yours, but simplicity has its advantages. Sometimes, the best solutions are the ones that rely on ingenuity rather than complexity. Imagine what we could achieve if we combined our strengths." The council members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Some seemed intrigued, while others remained cautious. But one thing was clear: humanity had earned their attention. Later that day, the delegation returned to their quarters on Zytheris Prime. Exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone, but there was an undeniable sense of accomplishment in the air. Back in their communal area, the team gathered to debrief and reflect on what had happened. "We showed them who we are," Subin said, breaking the silence. "Now it's up to them to decide whether they'll accept us." Taemin nodded, leaning back in his chair. "I think we gave them plenty to think about. Did you see the look on Vortan's face? He didn't expect us to hold our own like that." Hyejin smiled faintly. "Let's hope it's enough. We've come too far to let this slip away now." Jiho took a deep breath, letting the weight of their journey sink in. "No matter what happens next, we should be proud of what we've achieved. We didn't just fight for ourselves, we fought for everyone back home, for every person who's ever dreamed of reaching the stars." His words sparked a brief moment of quiet reflection. Each member of the team thought about the billions of people counting on them, waiting anxiously for news of their success or failure. The responsibility was immense, but so was the potential reward. As the evening wore on, conversation turned to lighter topics. Yoon Seok recounted a story about a failed experiment he'd conducted years ago, eliciting laughter from the group. Yoonji shared a poem she had written during their trip, her soft voice filling the room with warmth. Even Taemin cracked a rare smile, recounting a particularly absurd mission he'd been part of early in his career. These moments of levity reminded them of their humanity, the very quality they had worked so hard to showcase to the council. They weren't just representatives of Earth, they were individuals with hopes, fears, and dreams, and it was those qualities that made them truly unique. The next morning, the team received word that the council would convene once again to discuss humanity's fate. As they entered the grand chamber, the atmosphere felt different. Gone was the hostility and skepticism that had greeted them upon their arrival. In its place was a sense of anticipation, as though the council members were weighing their decision carefully. Vortan rose from his seat, addressing the assembly. "After much deliberation, the Galactic Council has reached a verdict," he announced, his voice carrying an air of finality. "Humanity has demonstrated resilience, adaptability, and ingenuity. While your methods may differ from ours, your spirit cannot be denied." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "Therefore, we grant you provisional membership in the Xylorian Alliance. You will be afforded access to our resources, knowledge, and protection. However, this status is temporary. Your actions moving forward will determine whether it becomes permanent." A wave of relief washed over Jiho and his team. They had done it. They had secured humanity's place among the stars. The other council members nodded in agreement, some even offering gestures of approval. For the first time since their arrival, the humans felt a sense of acceptance. As the meeting concluded, Jiho approached Vortan, extending a hand in gratitude. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "We won't disappoint you." Vortan regarded him for a moment before clasping his hand. "In return, see that you don't," he replied, a hint of a smile playing at the edges of his lips. Back in their quarters, the team celebrated quietly, savoring the magnitude of their achievement. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they also knew they had taken the first crucial step toward a brighter future. Together, they had proven that humanity belonged among the stars, and nothing could take that away from them.